Hello, everybody. This is Pastor Willie, and this is the encouraging word for today. God's ways are not our ways. God's thoughts are not our thoughts. God's ways of doing things are not our ways of doing things. You see, God is the potter. We are the clay. God is the creator. We are the creation. And what God does is he molds us for the use that he has planned for us. And yes, God has a plan and a purpose for every human being's life. And the goal is to walk in it. Ephesians 2:10 says, God has created us for good works, which God planned before for us to walk in. He's the potter. He creates the pot, the clay pot, the way he wants, different designs for different people, different purposes for different people. So what you go through in life qualifies you to minister to others, qualifies you to be a vessel, to be an instrument that God can use. He's the potter. You're the clay. And he will mold us through the circumstances of life. His ways are so high, we can't conceive of how he does it. It's amazing when you think about it. He molded me into the person I am to use me for the purpose he has. And that included my mother dying when I was young, different things happening to me in my life that made me, that created me, that molded me to be the person he intends me to be. It qualifies me to fulfill his purpose in my life. Now, I can learn spiritually about forgiveness. I can read it in the Bible, hear somebody talk about it. I've learned, you have to forgive. But until I have been hurt deeply and I forgive, I learn what it's like to forgive, how hard it is to forgive and let it go. Put them in God's hands. Until that happens to me, I'm really not qualified. I'm not qualified to tell others about forgiveness because I haven't been molded in that way. So we read the Bible and we see that God's ways are not our ways. And so Peter is listening to Jesus. Jesus has called him to follow him. And he's listening. Jesus is giving basic lessons. Matthew chapter 5, 6, and 7 are basic discipleship lessons. And so one of the first lessons he gives is this, and it's found in Matthew 5, verse 10. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Now, from my point of view, and probably from yours, it's crazy to think of being blessed because you're being persecuted. I were to think if I'm blessed, everything's going right. People like me. Doors open for me. Jesus said, blessed are those who are persecuted, but not just for any reason. For righteousness' sake, for doing the right thing, you're going to be persecuted. But when it happens, you're blessed. You belong to the kingdom of heaven. God's ways are not my ways, but he's molding us. Suffering persecution or suffering loss in life or suffering difficulties in life, the potter is at work. His ways are not our ways. So Peter hears with his ears Jesus saying, "Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake." He hears it. Interesting. But he hears Jesus adds other things. He said, "Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against me." I don't know about you, but when people falsely say something, that really gets me going. I hate that, and I have to make it right. But Jesus says, no, you're blessed when people falsely say evil against you because you're a follower of Jesus. So Peter's probably listening and like, this doesn't make sense. But then he saw it, so he heard the message, but then he saw Jesus demonstrate it in his life. God used Jesus in suffering to save the world. Peter observed Jesus suffer, and he understands the end result was salvation for lost people who believe in him. So he's seen it. So now he understands it on a deeper level. But still something's lacking, and that's experiencing it. And in the book of Acts, chapter 5, verse 40 and 41, Peter and the other apostles, the first apostles, have been preaching. They've been arrested, spent the night in jail. Now they're before the Sanhedrin, the Jewish rulers. And they tell them, never preach again in his name. And they have them beaten, flogged, beaten, suffering because of righteousness' sake. And they leave, and it says in Acts 5:40, they left rejoicing because they were counted worthy of suffering for Jesus. Now they had the experience. They were persecuted. They were suffering because of righteousness. Now they owned it. They understood it. And they were rejoicing. When Peter first heard that, he wasn't rejoicing. He's silent. And none of them say a word. They don't understand. Because you have to experience things in life to really understand. And listen, you're not qualified to give anyone advice or to teach anyone or to preach or to minister. You're not qualified to be used by God in a situation until you have experienced that situation. But God will put you through what you need to go through so he can use you for the purpose he's planned for you. Write that down. God will put you through what you need to go through so he will prepare you for what he has for you in the future. So Peter's heard it, he's seen it demonstrated, and now he has experienced it. He's qualified to teach others, to give advice to others. You know, I have to say this. I wasn't planning on saying it, but I hate when people give me advice when they haven't gone through the situation. I hate that. Because they don't know. They don't know what it's like. But when someone who knows what it's like and been through it, they know what I'm going through and they can tell me. And I listen to that kind of advice. So Peter heard it, he saw it, he experienced. He's qualified now. He has the authority to speak for God. And what happens? The church, the early church, is suffering badly. The early Christians are suffering badly, suffering persecution. And Peter, under the influence of the Holy Spirit, only Peter could have wrote it. He writes a letter to them, what we know in our Bible as 1 Peter. It was written to a suffering church and suffering Christians who were suffering because of persecution. And Peter is qualified to minister to them. He can be used by God to minister to them. So we're going to start looking at what he says about suffering and persecution in 1 Peter in the days ahead, because he's qualified to be a teacher. So my friends, what you go through qualifies you for something in the future that God has planned for you. Is it easy? Of course not. Of course not. It's not easy. That's the whole point. But God will redeem. Listen carefully. God will redeem what you are going through right now in your life. And he's going to use it and put you in just the right place to be used for his purpose. God bless you, and I will see you tomorrow.